So welcome everyone, and thank you for coming here today. As Darian mentioned, we were all invited here to speak about Community 2.0, to discuss the possibilities that emerge when you take today's technology and intersect that with community. Well, because I'm first and because I want to kick this off, I want to start by walking all of you through a little thought exercise. And so what I want all of you to do is take a moment and think about the best experience you've ever had collaborating with other people. Think about the best experience you've ever had. Could be a personal experience, could be a professional experience, could be something with colleagues at work or your family, could be a volunteer experience, like organizing TEDx, for example. Think about that experience for a second. Everyone have one in mind? Okay. What would your life be like if all of your experiences working with other people, being with other people, were like that experience? What would the world be like if everybody's experiences in the world were that good? When I imagine that scenario personally, I think of a world that just, it feels alive. Because that's basically how I feel and how I felt every time I've had great collaborative experiences or every time I've been with other people. I feel alive when I'm creating, when I'm learning, when I'm with other people who bring out the best in me, and when we're accomplishing things together that we would not have been able to accomplish individually. This is the promise, but unfortunately, this is also the need. We live in a world today where there's just enormous complexity, and we're dealing with these really, really hard challenges. And we're not going to be able to survive in this world unless we learn how to collaborate and be with each other more effectively. So I've been spending the better part of the past decade thinking about this problem and trying to understand both what's possible in the world today and also what it is that leads to more effective collaboration and to more effective community. And over the past few years, I've actually started to see the answer clearly. And I want to explore all of that with you today. I think that the path to high-performance collaboration, to untapping the explosive potential of today's technology, is practice. Shocking, right? I didn't come here to be flip about this and to tell you what may seem really obvious. In fact, I don't think it's obvious at all. And I think this is something that we often overlook when we think about what we need to do. We live in a world today where we're often looking for the magical answer, for the simple solution where if we just drop this in, then things are magically going to become better. What I want to do today is convince you that not only is this way of thinking not the right approach, but I want to convince you that a world in which practice is an integral part of everything that we do on a regular basis is a happier world, a livelier world, and a more desirable world. So part of the assumption that we have in terms of coming together today is that technology is going to allow us to do all of these things that we couldn't basically do before. And I think that's true. The assumption that I don't think is true is that we can just take new tools or better tools and just drop them in, and again, that's going to magically improve things. We need to sort of get beyond that kind of thinking in terms of what's happening. We not only need to have tools that we're more effective at using, but we also need to have tools that are actually unnatural. So this is a little bit in contradiction to what Darian was saying before. But we really need to pursue things that are unnatural, that are hard to learn, that require practice in order for us to wield them effectively. So if that sounds wrong to you, or if that sounds stupid, or if that sounds scary, it shouldn't. And the reason why it shouldn't is because every day we are doing things that we think are natural, but in fact are unnatural. So let me give you an example. How many of you know how to use one of these? Good, good, I'm happy to see that. How long did it take you to learn how to use one of these? When did you learn how to use one of these? Or how about this? How many of you know how to use one of these? Well, a pretty good number of people. Did this feel natural to you the first time you picked one of these up and started playing it? Or how about this? How many of you rode one of these here today? Again, a good number, San Francisco, that's great. Did this feel natural to you the first time you started writing this? So many of the things that we do on an everyday basis that feel natural to us right now, things that we do well, things that bring us joy, are things that are actually very unnatural. But they're good, they're important. We want to do those things because they allow us to do things that are high performance. So the common refrain that we're often hearing in the world today about tools is we need tools that are simpler, right? We need tools that are easier to use. Well, I think to some extent that's valuable, but I think that misses the point, right? So do we really want to eschew this world of high performance for a world where everything is easy to use? I don't think we want to go there. I think what we really want is a world where we have tools that are unnatural to use, but allow us to do things in a high-performance way. And so basically, how do we get there? Well, I want to put aside the whole tool conversation for a second because I don't want to get too caught up in it. Yes, we need better tools. Yes, we need tools that are unnatural, that require us to practice, that require us to be more high-performance. But we also need to practice other things. So let's set aside the tool conversation for a second and think about models of practice. If we want to be better at community, if we want to be better at collaboration, what are the things that we need to practice, given what we have today? Well, to think about this question, I think what's helpful is for us to think about other models of high-performance collaboration. And for me, the two models that I really like thinking about when I think about high-performance collaboration are music and sports. So what do music and sports have in common? Well, I think they have a lot of things in common. So one of them is that both of these things require communication to do really effectively. And actually the communication that's required is often nonverbal. Another thing that both of the things require that are in common is coaching. So isn't it interesting that the best athletes in the world and the best musicians in the world, all of them have coaches? I think that's something worth thinking about for a second. The other thing that's interesting about both of these fields is that they're actually great models for leadership and for process. So consider, for example, the heroic leadership model of a classical orchestra versus the distributed leadership model of a jazz band. Finally, what do I think is the most important thing that both of these things have in common? Well, you might have guessed it. It's practice, right? This is a critical, integral part of what musicians do, what athletes do every day in order to excel in their craft. So if we assume this, if we understand this, what can we learn from these different fields that will help us collaborate more effectively? Well, I'll take a sports example for a second. When I think about sports, I'm reminded of a story about John Wooden, the legendary coach. He coached the UCLA men's basketball team. He won an unprecedented and to this day an unmatched 10 national championships. Every year when he would inherit a new batch of players, the first thing he would do at the very first practice was he would teach his players how to put on their socks. Isn't that amazing? Can you believe this? Here was this guy who was basically had a bunch of grown men at his disposal, and he was basically teaching them how to put on their socks. Why would he do such a thing? Well, there was actually a method to his madness. As it turned out, the biggest injury challenge that Wooden had to face was blisters. It was basically, if it wasn't sprained ankles, it wasn't broken bones, it was players having blisters. And the reason they had blisters was that they weren't putting on their socks effectively. Sometimes it's the little things that matter, the things that we take for granted. And when we practice those little things, those are the things that will allow us to have the most impact in the work that we do. So let's think about knowledge work. I think everyone here are knowledge workers. If we take these lessons to heart, and if we say, okay, what are the things that we should be practicing? Are we practicing things that are fundamental to the work every day, intentionally? What would be possible if we did all of these things and if we practiced it? Well, I want to pose a couple of possibilities, some things that we could be practicing when we talk about knowledge work. The first thing is something that I like to call information hygiene. So we live in an information age. We're grappling with it all the time. If we don't manage it well, and all of us have experienced this, these are things that can easily overwhelm us. How often have we gotten in trouble because someone's misscheduled something in their calendar, or we can't find an important email that we're looking for? What if we practice some of these things intentionally? What would it look like if we practiced note-taking intentionally, or filing intentionally, or email management intentionally. The other thing that I want to propose is listening. So talking about listening and what we need to do and why it's so important, I think it's such a cliche in today's world. But what I want to ask you is, how often do we actually practice listening? And what would practicing listening even look like? Well, I'm going to try a little experiment with all of you. I want to do a little listening practice. So what I'm asking all you to do is to stand up, take a couple of deep breaths. Okay, so what I want all of you to do is listen to what I'm about to do. I'm going to sing a note, and I want you all to sing the same note with me. Okay? All right, this isn't American Idol, so don't worry about that. We're just going to try and hit the note. Okay, ready? Wow, that was really nice. That was really nice. I've never done this exercise with a large group before. Okay, so stay standing. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. And because I'm mic'd up, I have an advantage. So I'm just going to start, and then I'm going to fade out and let you take over. What I want you to do is hold the note. I want you to hold the note. I want you to listen to the sound that's being made. And if you feel like you want to sing a different note, or if you want to sing a variety of notes, go ahead and do that. This is a music improv exercise, so you can do whatever you want. So start with the note, and then go with whatever feels right. Just listen. Okay, ready? Very nice. Very nice. Think about the harmony that we can create. You can all sit down now. Thank you. Think about the harmony that all of you created with each other. Think about the beauty behind that. Think about how much better we all would have been if we had practiced. And now think about what the world would be like. Again, the first question I asked all of you before, imagine a world where we are collaborating effectively with each other. The path to achieving that world is practice. Thank you, everybody.